The mentor's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of centuries of accumulated wisdom. Kenwin, still reeling from the terrifying glimpse into the abyss he'd opened, felt a tremor of fear run through him. The power he wielded was intoxicating, exhilarating, but also terrifyingly unpredictable. The Quantum Quattro pulsed faintly in his hand, a constant reminder of the responsibility he now bore. He looked at the crystal, its facets shimmering with an ethereal inner light. It was more than just a tool. It was an extension of himself, a conduit for the raw, untamed energy that surged within him. He felt the weight of its potential, the immense power it held, and the terrifying consequences of misusing it. The mentor was right. Control, not power, was the key. His mentor, whose name he learned was Theron, a name that whispered of ancient power and unwavering resolve, guided him through a series of intricate exercises. Theron, a being of immense power himself, yet radiating a calm, unwavering serenity, began by teaching Kenwin to focus his intent, to channel his energy with precision and control. This wasn't about unleashing raw power. It was about sculpting it, shaping it, directing it with the precision of a master sculptor molding clay. The first lesson involved manipulating smaller energy fields. Kenwin, guided by Theron's patient instruction, learned to create shimmering orbs of light, to make them expand and contract, to shift their colors, to control their intensity. It was painstaking work, demanding an almost unbearable level of focus and concentration. He faltered many times, his energy flaring uncontrollably, creating chaotic bursts of light and heat that scorched the obsidian walls. But with each failure, Theron's quiet guidance helped him regain his composure, correcting his technique, refining his focus. He learned to sense the flow of quantum energy, to feel its subtle currents, to understand its intricate dance. He practiced manipulating small objects, pebbles, dust motes, even the very air itself, using the Quantum Quattro as a lens to bend and reshape reality. He moved things without touching them, levitated small stones, and even created miniature gusts of wind. Each success, no matter how small, filled him with a growing sense of accomplishment, a tangible testament to his burgeoning mastery. As Kenwin's control improved, so did the complexity of the exercises. Theron introduced him to the concept of spatial manipulation, the ability to warp and distort the very fabric of space itself. The initial attempts were clumsy, awkward, resulting in minor distortions that created shimmering ripples in the air. But gradually, with relentless practice, Kenwin learned to create localized pockets of warped space, bending light, distorting shadows, and momentarily shifting the perspective of his surroundings. He learned to create small portals, shimmering doorways into nothingness. These were initially unstable, flickering and collapsing almost instantly. But with time and rigorous practice, he managed to stabilize them long enough to glimpse the darkness beyond. Fleeting images of desolate landscapes, eerie shadows, and the chilling presence of something ancient and malevolent. He learned to quickly close these portals. The glimpses he got were too terrifying to contemplate for long. One day, during a particularly intense session, Kenwin accidentally opened a rift larger than before. It wasn't a controlled opening, it was a surge of uncontrolled energy. A burst of power that exceeded even his burgeoning abilities. The air shimmered, distorting into a swirling vortex of colors, a chaotic tear in the fabric of reality. This time, instead of fleeting glimpses, he saw a full panorama of the other dimension. The scene that unfolded before him was nightmarish beyond description. Jagged, obsidian mountains clawed at a sky filled with swirling nebulae that pulsed with an ominous red light. Grotesque creatures, beings that defied all earthly comprehension, scuttled across the landscape. Their forms were a twisted mockery of life, their eyes burning with a malevolent hatred that chilled him to his very core. Some were humanoid, yet impossibly distorted, their limbs elongated and twisted, their skin a sickly green hue. Others were amorphous beings of shadow and smoke, their forms constantly shifting and changing. He saw towering structures that seemed to be carved from the very substance of nightmares. These structures pulsed with a dark energy, emanating a palpable sense of dread. He saw creatures, large and small, that were a twisted reflection of earthly life, distorted and corrupted. They moved with terrifying grace and speed, their movements hinting at an ancient, unnatural power. The sounds that reached him were equally disturbing, a cacophony of guttural growls, unearthly screeches, and a low, resonant hum that vibrated deep within his bones. The air itself seemed to crackle with malevolent energy, a palpable sense of dread hanging heavy in the air. The very essence of the place seemed to feed on fear and despair. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but Theron's voice, calm and reassuring, cut through the fear. "Close it, Kenwin! Close it now!" The command was sharp, yet it contained a core of deep understanding of his own potential for destruction. With a surge of adrenaline and a desperate focus, Kenwin channeled the remaining energy within the Quantum Quattro. He focused his intent, willing the rift to close, and with a final violent surge of power, the vortex collapsed, leaving behind only a lingering shimmer in the air and an echoing shrince. The experience left Kenwin shaken, the images seared into his memory. He understood now, with a clarity that went beyond mere comprehension, the immensity of the threat he faced. The demons he had glimpsed were not mere monsters. They were beings of immense power, a force capable of destroying entire worlds. And he, a young Orisha god, was their only hope. Theron, observing his reaction, offered no words of consolation, but simply a nod of understanding. The training continued, but with a renewed intensity, a recognition that the stakes were infinitely higher than they had initially seemed. The Quantum Quattro was not just a tool. It was a weapon, a key to the survival of worlds, and Kenwin's mastery of it was no longer simply a matter of personal growth, but a desperate race against an imminent and horrifying threat. The whispers of prophecies were no longer just vague warnings. They were a grim countdown to a war that could shatter all of existence. The weight of that knowledge settled upon his shoulders, heavy and inescapable. His journey had just begun.